I'm giving somebody the blues today.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we just had the Stellar Blade director Kim ask Harada for Eve to be a character in Tekken. This game is pretty successful. As you can see here, Stellar Blade jumped up 180 places from 185 to top 5 in the US. This made it the #2 best-selling game on PC platform in the US for June. At the same time, Stellar Blade also sold 3 million copies. And we know that Tekken 8 currently is at 3 million as well. Both of these games will soon hit 4 million, but you can see that they're equal in copies sold, but also Stellar Blade has a lot of momentum. And I know a lot of people, when they hear the name Stellar Blade, they think of like a Gooner game. I mean, even when you look at the official Twitter count, this is the official Twitter count of Stellar Blade. When you just scroll down, yeah, the game is goonered out. You know, you do got to ask the question, can Tekken handle all that? I don't know. Like, Tekken waifu characters look a little crazy. Look at Asuka's neck. Look at Jayu's shoulders, right? It's a little, but you know, Tekken did say they wanted to adjust the character proportions and bodies and make them look a little better. So maybe they're prepared a little bit for Eve. But the point that I was going to make is that, you know, what's more important about Eve is the gameplay. When you look at Eve's gameplay, the first thing you might notice is that she has a sword. This is something that's kind of problematic when you're talking about Tekken, is sword-wielding characters. I mean, Clive has a sword. When the developers were talking about Clive being put into the game, they said that they had to be careful not to give him too much range because his sword is so long. In Final Fantasy, the sword is huge. In Tekken, they shrunk it a little bit because they didn't want to give him that much range. But as you see in the Tekken player base, people still complain about his range and how he can outrange, you know, other sword characters like Yoshimitsu and stuff like that. So Stellar Blade having a sword and jumping around, I mean, one would only assume that the same thing would happen. But then also with this character, she has a lot of abilities. Now, we talked about Stellar Blade before and whether or not she would be a good character to add in Tekken. And I mean, I think so. I think this gameplay, I never played it. I was going to play it, but then I decided to wait for like games like Battlefield and, you know, buy other games, Black Moon Wukong. But I still think that games like this, where it's all about like action and fighting, I think this is something that the developers could tap into. And with what they learned about Clive and what they learned about like Yoshimitsu and Tekken 8 and Season 2, I think that they can just cook up something amazing with this. An Eve collaboration would blow Twitter away. And when you talk about Tekken needing that boost to become like more mainstream, more relevant, you know, doing a Stellar Blade collaboration would push it over the top, and it would, you know, attract a massive audience. Now, a fan page for Stellar Blade tweets out a young and feisty Kim with prominent fighting game creator Harada-san. And this is a picture from 2015. So you can see that this relationship goes back far. Harada responds to this and says, "How nostalgic. He once told me that he liked Tekken series. I met him again backstage at the Game Awards last year, and we had become very calm and refined gentlemen. I'm a fan of his work." So you can see Harada's keeping it classy there. Now, here's where things get crazy. The man himself, Kim, thank you for remembering me. In truth, I've been devoting myself to real sparring in the shadows, preparing to continue entering Tekken. If my own participation proves impossible, then I must ask you to please allow Eve to take the stage in my stead. So I just want to talk real briefly about the long history of guest character possibilities that Tekken 8 already has, because, you know, when people talk about what made Tekken 7 successful, people often contribute that success, one, to Street Fighter 5 doing poorly, but two, to all of the guest characters they had. I mean, Akuma, Geese, and even though Tekken players try to say that Negan isn't cool or whatever, when you look at the statistics, Negan was awesome. And also when you look at the way that Negan was introduced into the game via Harada tweets, it was incredible. Someone tweeted at Harada, this is back in 2017, so this is before Negan was announced. They simply say, put Negan from The Walking Dead in Tekken. And Harada responded to this and says, with Lucille, haha, nice idea. With an historic villain, but he's too weak as a fighter in my opinion. So you can see here that Harada was specifically addressing Negan and talking about why he wouldn't work in Tekken while simultaneously working on Negan to put him in Tekken. And this tweet here just gives so much energy to so many different theories and ideas that Harada referred to in the past. I mean, one of the biggest requests, even still to this day, is Tifa. This comes from IGN. People want Final Fantasy's Tifa in Tekken 8 so much that Harada had to address it. Harada says, "We all know she is attractive and I understand that, but as yet we have not decided about guest characters, etc." We know that they were working on Clive going all the way back to 2022. So this is just another example where Harada is working either on a character or with a developer, and he is specifically attacking or addressing something while simultaneously working on an idea from that same game. Are you guys one of those people who think that, you know, it's not just about the looks, it's not just about the waifu, it's also about the gameplay that she provides? Are you one of those people who simply want the character? You would be okay with giving away a DLC slot in Tekken 9 to do so? Or are you one of the people who say, we got Clive, we got Noctis, and we don't need to do so anymore? Now, a question that you have to talk about when you're on the topic of guest characters is whether or not they are compatible. This is a conversation that also took place in Tekken 7, but it applies to pretty much every DLC guest character ever. Harada said Morgan from Darkstalkers was originally meant to be Capcom's guest representative in Tekken 7 instead of Akuma, but plans changed when they wanted to use Akuma as a test for the then planned Tekken Cross Street Fighter. And to add to this, they also said about this character, this is from Harada, in fact in 2017 it was a top candidate for a guest character appearance, and we were actually one step away from formally approaching Capcom. We were confident in the remodeling and animations, reproduction, and flavor, but it seemed like verifying the tactical reproducibility would take time, so we gave up back then. And this is where Harada is talking about a guest character not being compatible with Tekken. We also know after Tekken 7, talking about Tekken 8, Harada says that working with 2D characters is pretty difficult anyways. Like, not only is it difficult to adapt their playstyle, but then you talk about balance them. 2D characters need 2D mechanics, and also they need the 3D mechanics so they can, you know, function as a Tekken character, right? And when you give them both, it just comes off very cheap and very hard to balance. So no matter which character you want to suggest, you always have to think about whether or not it's compatible. One of my requests was Levi Ackerman, and you have a tweet here from Harada where he says, "Not much of a fit in Tekken's game system, sorry." But even with that in mind, there's other things out there that Harada has teased. Back before Virtua Fighter 6 was announced, we thought that franchise was long gone, and as a result, we just wanted to see one of those characters at least make its way into Tekken and survive. But Harada says first they should announce Virtua Fighter 6, then we could talk. And the reason why Harada said this is because he only wants to collaborate with video games that is current, that is relevant, that has new titles out. A lot of people say things like collaborate with Bloody Roar and games of like the past, and Harada doesn't want to do it because he wants to collaborate with a franchise, with a property that's going strong today. Virtua Fighter, their new game looks incredible so far, and then Stellar Blade, that game is like doing amazing work. So both of those are contenders and should be on the table. I just highlight all of these different interactions so you guys understand how many developers are wanting to collaborate with Tekken, and also how the players are requesting all of these ideas. I mean, for Payday specifically, we know that these guys have a direct connection with Tekken. When Tekken was celebrating its 30th anniversary and they went to Sweden, the Payday developers met them there and was on stage. He's the one holding the microphone, and he was talking with Harada about Tekken. They met multiple times, and we still don't know if something's going to come out of that. But then also, when you talk about other developers who were talking about collaborating with Tekken, this is where you have Dead by Daylight step into the fray. Another dev mentioned wanting Tekken in DBD. And then they also said he wants to bring Huntress as a guest character in a Tekken game. Now, this is where the conversation heads back to Stellar Blade and Tekken. We see how difficult it is to do guest characters. We know that they need to be compatible. We know that Tekken has a lot of options and a lot of developers who wants to do it. But the newest challenger is the Stellar Blade character. You guys comment down below. What game would you like to see Tekken collaborate with? Would you want to see another Final Fantasy with Tifa? Would you want to see a Dead by Daylight? Would you want to see a Stellar Blade Eve? Would you want to see a Payday 3 collaboration? Or do you have some other idea out there?